When I originally made this discovery, I had no idea what I was looking at. At the time, it looked like some type of destroyed culture, but I didn't realize it was going to be the largest archaeological discovery. And ultimately, ended up spanning the globe. And I was able to verify that through these very specific geometries. And today, we're going to look at one of those. And I was about to just jump into 20 degrees because these are almost all based off of on 20 degrees. I was about to jump in to the 20 degrees, and I realized I actually had a 0 degree version. And so, if you're just joining us, essentially what we're talking about is an advanced culture did span the globe. They worship the feathered dragon, it seems, and they have a very strict standard in their art and geometry. And so, we're able to identify and verify this culture through that geometry. And so, what we're going to do is we're going to look at and learn those geometries. So you guys don't need to listen to me and hope that my stories are true, but rather you can go out and just find the stuff for yourself and, in fact, assist me in verifying that this is all true. So, just a quick refresher, the majority of our effigies, or these artifacts that we're looking at, are former effigies that seem to have been attached to something, probably likely to do with the seven-headed serpent in some way. And so the majority of what you can find in your streams and rivers are these snakehead effigies. And they are actually identified through varying degrees. And most of the time, in fact, the majority of the time, their mouths are open. But in this case, the one that I was about to neglect to identify was a 0 degree, or essentially a snake's head without its mouth open. I do find examples of those, and there are very decent examples. In this case, you can see where it was attached, and it has a faint impression of a serpent's head, just like these. Where it gets weird for me is the geode. So the way that I kind of categorize these is like it's a flat topped with a radius bottom, and as you move these around, like this is probably the best looking example. You can see where it broke off; it was attached to something. You can see the faint, impression of the snake. But that's ultimately the shape that I've kind of lumped this category as. It's like this just, flat topped head, as if the snake's mouth was not open, right? And you could say that maybe this one, whatever the heck this is, is of that same category. It's the flat top with the radius bottom. Looks like it was broken off. And likewise, this one. So this is a part of what assisted me in realizing that I I didn't really understand what I was looking at, and that was essentially the fabrication. Because if they're able to get this isn't carved. This is some other fabrication method that you can't understand. How can you do this with a geode? Like I don't really understand how it's possible to fabricate geode. It's not like subtractive sculpting. This isn't really translating well. I'm sorry about that, but look, we have a break on this end. I've got flat top with that radius kind of bottom thing, and you can faintly see. I mean, it kind of, what the hell, man? I don't know if you guys can see that. But it's like multiple angles. But ultimately, it feels like that category. But this thing, in my mind, this was back when I originally thought everything was still carved. And, you get this, something like this, and you realize, hey, this is contributing to it not being a carved. I know this doesn't translate well, but, in person, you can clearly see that it is something to this effect. And however, it's a geode, and it was found in the Ohio River, right? So, for what that's worth geographically, I don't know, but geodes in the Ohio, and they look like snakes. But there are other ones that, like this guy, for example, it's another position of a snake's head with his mouth closed. And if you'll see here, this is some of their mortar or adhesive. There's that flat top. Let me get another angle. See where it broke off? You can see faint impressions left. Some designs. But that's something that we have yet to really cover in detail is adhesives. I have a whole category of adhesives actually that they use, and you can almost see where it wants to be a star in here because that's what they were intended to portray, supposedly in my mind. I have multiple examples of stars at the edge of mouth and the chins and cheeks, in fact. And just a quick glance at some more of what I'm lumping into that category. It's like, remember, this culture, I said impressions, right? And so these are faint impressions. And as you look at this and you analyze this, like you can see where it was attached. In fact, the top coat is much different than where the damage was, where it was originally attached to whatever, I don't know, larger structure. But you might find these that faintly look like just the heads, without some kind of mouth open like this. So in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to get into the 20-degree versions. And this stuff is worldwide, guys. Like, it doesn't matter where you're at, where you're listening, whether it's like UK, New Zealand, South Africa, South America, like literally everywhere. People have contacted me and they're like, yep, we're seeing exactly what you're talking about. So if you're interested in verifying the first worldwide culture with me, I suggest you go look in your streams and see if you can't begin to start finding what we lay out here at this channel. So make sure you subscribe and stay tuned for more of these videos, and I'm just going to go through the process.